Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves Week 7 of the box office. So let's talk about the hard numbers. So in Week 7, it only made $740,000. It didn't even make $1 million, okay? There's a lot of talk about the Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves box office, but I want to make it very clear. It is a commercial failure. So week 7, it makes $740,000, not even $1 million, okay? But that was enough. What did it achieve this week? It made the top 10. It made the top 10 list of all movies that were released this week. It was on the top 10 list, and that's not a small thing. So let's talk about what it did and what it didn't do. So at this point, so far, it's made $93 million domestic. Okay, that is very bad. Failing to make $100 million domestic is terrible. What did it make internationally? Internationally, it made $111 million. Okay, now the reality, again, absolutely terrible. We should have had $100 million from China. We should have had $100 million from Japan. We should have had $100 million from Europe. We should have had $100 million from South America, and then we should have had 400. And then we should have had $700 million from America itself. We should have had $100 million from Canada, right? It's rough. It is really rough. So because everywhere I just mentioned, these are theatrical markets that can really deliver, right? And that have delivered for movies in the past. And we should have had $100 million from each and every one of them, but we didn't. Right, so that's significant. It's a problem, right? What it did do is it did make $100 million international, and it also squeezed right over the $200 million mark. Now, the reality, what we actually needed in order to get what we were hoping for, which was a Dungeons and Dragons cinematic universe, was we really needed the exact numbers that Super Mario actually earned. So if we had made $1.2 billion, that would have been a completely appropriate expected result based on the budget that was spent on this, right? So we really should, and right now there's a huge question mark on whether it's going to be a sequel. I had also heard a little bit of squawk in my comments that people were saying that this was not intended to be a franchise. That's absolutely absurd. No one spends $150 million for a standalone film. It's literally never buld done, right? Now, why would somebody say that wasn't intended? For a whole bunch of reasons. If they had any clue that the numbers weren't going to produce, they'll do traditional Hollywood spin, right? So anytime anybody connected to Hollywood, Grace Randolph says it flat out, they lie constantly, right? So if a Hollywood person's lips are moving, there's a good chance that what you're hearing is a lie, right? So, but I can tell you right now, nobody spends $150 million for a standalone film. That's not a thing, right? When they put $150 million down just on the budget of the film and paid Chris Pine $11 million, that wasn't a standalone. Pay attention, right? So basically, so those are the numbers. We're in week 7. And one other thing that was really interesting about what just happened is there's just so much bad news here. So Paramount made the decision to put the film into digital release just this last week. So this week, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves had to compete in American theaters and actually all over the globe, had to compete with itself on a digital release, right? And so now, to be clear, digital releases don't determine anything for a sequel, right? You need to show up and show out at the theater, and the reality is, it's all, everybody knows Super Mario is going to get, and so that a sequel. So it was really rough that Dungeons & Dragons had to compete with itself. Its big screen had to compete literally with its small screen sales, and that is brutal. Now, am I upset with Paramount on that? No, absolutely not, right? I'm not going to make what I think is a misstep larger than all the things they did Paramount really, they labored extremely hard to make this a successful film, and its failures are not coming from any misstep that Paramount made. This is a phenomenally made film. Daly and Goldstein did their job. Every actor in this thing did their job. Paramount did their job. There were other problems, right? So basically, and now the question is, right? Are we even going to, is it going to fall out of theaters next week, right? So if it doesn't make top 10, it could still be in theaters technically, but it's not in theaters functionally. When it falls off the top 10, it literally won't have any more box office. Nobody cares about box office outside of the top 10. So one of the few achievements that it could still get is, can it remain in the top 10 for 8 weeks, right? So one, I just wanted to thank you for letting me share, my opinion. Every single word you just heard is my opinion on Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves box office. What are your thoughts? And I'm really curious, what do you think is still a path to a sequel? I do think there are still paths to sequels. No studio is going to pick this up without an external reason, right? So right now, I think James Gunn may be an external reason. He's more than willing to hire his friends, and he does have a friend in the D&D Honor Among Thieves film, and I truly believe one call from Bradley Cooper, you may be looking at D&D hat might manifest just from that. How could that happen? James Gunn is the head of the DC cinematic universe. He's got enough pull to make, and Warner Brothers is struggling with every IP they have. So that could manifest. The other one is friends in high places, right? Dungeons & Dragons has a lot of friends in high places. And I think there are, I know this for a fact, there are billionaires that are highly interested in Dungeons & Dragons, right? So that's another way it can manifest, is just somebody with literally enough money to point the right peoples in the right direction. So I think there's still a few paths to sequels. I'm curious if you think there's any hope that I haven't listed that could manifest a sequel for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.